How to convince anyone. That's what I'm going to discuss in this video. Hi, my name is Shreya and welcome to Shreya TV. Here I talk about executive presence, purpose and authentic style so that you get the success you deserve. And in this video, I'm going to tell you everything about convincing people, but I want you to do two things here. Number one, I want you to grab a pen and a notepad because you've got some serious thinking and analyzing to do. And secondly, I want you to watch this video till the end because I have three tried and tested strategies for you that are going to work. And they're all connected with one another. So if you watch one and not the other, it's not going to make sense. So make sure that you stick around till the end. As always, whenever I share a skill with you, I always talk about the fundamental, the principle, the foundation. And the foundation to build convincing skills is that before you learn how to convince anyone, it's important to know why you want to convince this person. And this is the time to grab your notepad and pen and think about somebody who you want to convince. Start making notes on why do you want to convince this person. And I'll tell you why it's important to answer this, so that you don't set yourself up for frustration, angst, aggression, any sort of anger or hatred towards that person when they don't get convinced. So do you want somebody to understand your point of view? That's why you want to convince them? Or do you want someone to buy your product or service? Do you want that particular job opportunity or an assignment that you've been waiting for? Or are you simply trying to convince somebody to satisfy your own ego? Oh yes, this last point, do not underestimate it. So many people, when I hear them out, all I hear is that beyond a point they've completely lost track. They have forgotten why they're trying to convince the person, and all they are entangled in is that self ego boosting, massaging, and till the time they don't put their point across, they're not going to sleep and breathe. So please don't set yourself up for that trap. It's not going to lead you anywhere. That said, here are the three amazing points for you to consider. Number one, know your logic, your data points and your objective reasoning behind convincing the other person. Well, it is related to the foundation, but this point is important and worth considering. Once you know the logic behind convincing somebody, once you have your facts and figures ready, once you have your objective reasons, not subjective, not personal, not going on and on, objective, crisp reasons behind why you want to convince that person, it's going to be a cakewalk. The rest is going to be easy. Why? Because so many times we don't understand that in order to convince somebody, that person has to trust us. And you know what? A lot of times, even in blood relations with friends, close friends and family, trust gets, withered away, or those threads get loosened. It's a disaster when you try to sell your product or service or try to convince somebody with your idea without setting up a trust layer. So let's say you are a freelance digital marketing strategist and you have an ideal customer in mind and you want to reach out to him or her with a plan and with the hope that they eventually get convinced for your services. The first thing you want to do is establish that trust, and to do that you've got to give them multiple layers of proof. Why are you the right person for them? What kind of audience have you worked with in the past? And show them some numbers and data. So show them how, when you started working with a particular customer, what number of followers did they have on Instagram? What number of subscribers did they have on YouTube? How did their website look like before they were working with you? And after they worked with you, how does their brand look like? How does their facade looks like? What number of followers do they have now, etc. So give them facts, give them figures, give them more logic so that it's easier for the person to get convinced that you're the right person to work with. Number two, have an intention for connection. If you plan your convincing strategy only keeping yourself in mind, thinking about why should you do that, why should you do that, why should, and not thinking about the other person's point of view, you will not be able to create a wise strategy. You will not have an appropriate wise strategy, and because of that you are going to end up looking selfish, and nobody wants to get convinced by somebody who's full of themselves and somebody who's selfish. So let me give you another example. Let's say you want your boss to consider your idea for the ad strategy this time, and you prepare everything and you want to convince the boss that yours is the perfect idea. The Along with the whys that you prepare, what you also want to plan is your boss's point of view. Step into their shoes. And now I'm going to bring in the point of empathy. Yes, empathy is important because you need to understand their situation as well. What if there are already 3 to 4 contenders who have given compelling ad strategies to your boss? She or he will have to consider everybody before they sign up with you. Or let's say the ad budget this year is limited, and what you are proposing is going to shoot the budget, and then you're completely missing the mark, so it's going to be difficult to convince the boss. Or let's say that the boss considered your ad strategy 2 months back, so he or she needs to give a chance to the others as well. Or what if your boss has a bias towards somebody else? What if they really want to work with somebody, or they want to consider somebody else's idea? If you have not considered all these points in mind, then you will not have a suitable wise strategy ready, and that's why convincing is going to become harder. But if you have considered all these points, then your convincing is going to come across a lot more purposeful and authentic, and chances are you will be able to convince your boss. And the last point, create a yes ladder. What does a yes ladder mean? Well, in the game of convincing somebody, you cannot have a my way or the highway strategy. That does not work. That is a very childish approach. Convincing is a mature play. You need to take it maturely and realistically, and for that you need to plan a yes ladder, meaning you need to create steps for yeses before you get your big ask or your big yes. A lot of times when we want to convince people, we only have one plan. We don't have the second best plan, and that's how we set ourselves in for a frustration trap or a disappointment trap. Let me give you an example. So it's going to be a different example. Let's say you are in a relationship with somebody, and you and your partner are pretty serious, and you eventually want to get married. However, before you take that big step, you want to live with each other for some time before, so that you know how your ways of living are, and then you take that big leap. But here's the hurdle. You've got to convince your parents that you want to get into a live-in relationship, and you're already living with your parents right now. So how do you convince them? So in this case, you need to convince your parents to invite your partner to your house for dinner on a Friday, and then and request them that your partner stay over for that night, and she or he will go back on Saturday morning. So because it's a weekend and you want to binge watch, and a couple of friends are coming together, so but you need to promise them that you're going to sleep in different rooms. So that's your first yes step. If you get that first yes from them, it'll be easier to move on. So start with something that is going to be easier for them to accept. Again, you see, when you plan your yes strategy, all the previous points that I've discussed matter a lot. You need to know your why very well. You need to have your data points, facts, and your objective reasons ready. And you also need to connect with your parents. You need to empathize with them. You also need to know their point of view and their rationale behind refusing for a live-in. Once you've done all that groundwork, now this yes strategy is going to be very smooth for you. So the first step is to let your parents, at least have sleepovers in their presence. The next step, the next yes step that you can try is to convince your parents that you need to live independently alone for some time. And why? Because you're eventually going to move out, and do it in a way that 5 days you're going to live in a new, let's say, a PG or a rented accommodation, and 2 days you're going to stay with your parents, because you need to get a hang of what it feels like to manage your own expenses and live all by yourself, so that you're ready for the next big step. If they say yes to that, then you can slowly request them that, it'll be ideal if 2 3 of you live together, because then there'll be shared expenses and it's just going to be more economical. So you see, you can have your own strategy. I just thought I gave you an example, but the idea is, and you could try this even for work, for business, for anything that you want to. Please plan small wins first rather than planning that big ask, because when you don't get that big ask, you are going to be disappointed. So be more strategic about convincing us. Now over to you. It's your time to comment below and let me know which of these 3 points resonated with you the most. And I also want you to let me know what are your convincing problems, what are some of the challenges you face when you're trying to convince people, so that when I read your comments, I'll be able to suggest you some things here and there. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you did, please show your love, like this video and share it with as many people as you think should watch content like this. Thank you so much for watching and take care.